what about? Oh, I'm hesitant to go into this since we've spoken so well of open source and everything, but we kind of the two problem things. Jordan, do you ever use Kdenlive? You use it all the time, right? Okay. Yeah. I have an error in my PC Lin version. When I've noticed that the last colon in the timestamp, like if you're at 1 hour, 2 minutes, 20 frames or something, that last colon between seconds and frames has been replaced with a semicolon in mine. I know what it is. In the file that generates that, somebody made a typo. But I don't know what files generate that, and I'm wondering if this is something that happened in PC Lin or if it's a global problem.
I'm looking at mine right now. Where is it that it exactly happens?
Load a video or something.
Done.
Okay. In the time stamp for the video, like you have the 4 sets of numbers.
Okay, when you double click on it to get the duration?
Yeah,
position, crop start, duration.
No, it's in the project monitor and on the timeline.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like look at how the time's displayed.
Yeah.
Look at the what's supposed to be a colon between the seconds mark and the frames mark. On mine, it's a semicolon. So when I'm typing time in there and stuff, I have to make sure to type second colon frame because it doesn't know how to find it with the semicolon.
It's all colons here.
Okay, so this is something PC Lin did.
There have been a couple of times when I've had to make something like the outro for my videos. I want it to be exactly 20 seconds. So I double click on a clip, I have to delete it all out and then put 20:00.
Yeah, it's like there's an error in mine. Apparently, what you're saying is this is something that happened in the PC Lin build. So okay.
Apparently, and it could be in other ones, but it's not in the Arch one at least.
Okay. Which one are you running?
I'm running 0.7.8 on Arch. And I've also done it on Ubuntu 10.10s, I believe.
Let's see, help. Which KDE version? Yes, I'm on 0.7.8. So...
at least about a month ago.
Yeah, it's on the same verb. So, yeah. It's like it's annoying. I wish I knew what file it was so I could fix the typo. Because it's like it's everywhere. Like in the
you
time.
You don't want to go in the source and search for a semicolon either.
Yeah, it's like that's the God knows how many of those will be in there. It's like, but it's like everywhere in the timeline and the sun. It's like, and it drives me nuts because when I click on the timeline, I can't just. Like, if I just want to edit the seconds, I can't do that. I have to make sure to replace that semicolon with a colon. Because it doesn't know what a semicolon is, except when it substitutes the colon for a semicolon. Okay, so that's not a Kdenlive whole problem. I was just wondering on that. Do we want to take another part to go into the thoughts on Firefox potential problems going forward? The topic right above that.
What do you where? Can you highlight it or something?
I am.
Okay.
Wrong highlight.
Ah, it's not readable. There we go.
Okay.
I hate to say this, but this is kind of true at this point. All my typos aside, but I mean, it isn't official yet because IE9 is still in beta. But the weak link for browsers no longer is Internet Explorer with IE9. It sadly is Firefox 3.
Well, but IE9 is not official yet. Firefox 4 is in a late beta phase, so they might even release near the same time.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm holding reservations on the browser shakeup until the browsers are actually released, till they're not betas and they're not inside, and we actually know the shape they're going to take. I'm just saying, as things stand now.
Now, by properly supporting CSS, do you mean CSS 3?
What I mean is, one of the things that always bugs the hell out of me about Firefox, because I design, I do web pages and stuff. If you get too many of a repeating element in a series, whether it's a repeating identical div or in HTML5 a set of articles, or so on and so forth, it will do some weird things if all the alignment and properties of that area are defined in the ESS, and that due to some weird error in the Mozilla engine, it will start adding spaces. It'll display it weird, but it's an inconsistent error, and you can't really track it down. All I know is it has something to do with the Mozilla engine. If you're putting a series of articles or divs to act like featured item sections, and you're setting them to be Y width so that there's four across, and they start forming rows of four, and yada yada and so forth. Some of them will start changing inside, and if you have them being something like where you mouse over, the whole thing changes color, you'll see whole areas of it don't change color because they're not actually part of it. Invisible spaces have been inserted. And this is a problem on both Windows and Linux. I don't know if it's a problem on the Mac, because I don't mess around with Firefox on the Mac enough. But it's weird. And there's no logical reason for this to happen. There's nothing wrong with the code. And none of the other browsers do it. Chrome doesn't do it. Safari doesn't do it. Conquer doesn't do it, which is based on the same core that Safari is based on. It's no other browser, and as of IE9, since IE9 does sufficiently support CSS for using CSS to tell everything where it is, and it no longer requires special CSS to make Microsoft happy, it's now the weak link is, as things stand now, Mozilla.
That's one thing I've actually never seen that error. So
well, it's you probably have seen it and you just didn't know it. Have you ever gone to a web page and things seem like they're spaced wrong or something? I should have put up an example or something to show someone. I wish we had a site here. I'd put up a perfect example of it. And if you refresh the browser 2 or 3 times, it will eventually get rid of the error. But the average end user isn't going to do that. It's it's an intermittent error, and it's something to do with just getting too many of the same area in a single section.
If that's the case, if you can refresh it and it'll work, then that's a bug.
It's a bug. It's a bug in the Mozilla engine.
Then you ought to report it. You can track down what's causing it.
Oh no, that's the thing. I can never figure out what's causing it. I've noticed this this showed up around 3-4, and it's still there. And it's just one of those. I have never been able to quite figure out what triggers it. And if you do enough tricking around, you can trick it to not trigger. If you change it so, okay, I'm going to add a center tag to this one, and it's not just so it's different enough that it isn't the same one 8 times. It's but there's no rhyme or reason or logic to it. It's some kind of bug that just triggers this. And aside from that, I'd say, aside from the speed slow, Mozilla would be on par with the rest, but because of this bug, it is now the weak link.
I've talked to developers, real bona fide web developers, and they say who've tried IE beta, and they still say that you still have to program differently for IE. And even though Firefox may have that slight bug, things tend to still work on it that you program for other stuff.
Oh yeah, no, very much so. However,
whereas IE, they tend to not work at all.
Yeah, with IE they tend to not work at all. However, with IE, now were they talking about IE9 or IE8?
IE9.
Okay, it's
it's an improvement, but there's still some things that you have to write differently for IE.
There are still some things you have to write differently for IE, but the problem before IE9 was, you couldn't even tell a div, let alone a table, to be centered. The auto-align stuff which is the vast majority, which is used a lot, will now work with Internet Explorer. What you had to do before was for every other browser but Internet Explorer, you could do auto-align, text-align center, yada yada, all this stuff. It would work. And for IE, you had to go in and add center tags to your page rather than defining it in CSS. And there were things like that that are no longer a problem. So for, I would say, 85% of the web at this point. You know, basic web pages, yeah. More advanced pages, yes. More advanced pages, you have to make minor tweaks for a lot of browsers if you want it to look perfect. But for 85% of the web now, IE pays attention, and it pays attention to the CSS. And one of the things I did with IE, just to throw it through its paces, was I threw a HTML5 page at it, where all the individual, where you're using, you know, headers and footers and articles and sections rather than like you traditionally write an HTML4 page. And I found when you do those types of things, you could write the exact same stuff and it looked the same in all of them, which means IE really has got their lesson here, that they need to support the modern web.
Do you get it IE
Say that again?
How fast?
What do you mean, how fast?
Is IE 9 that when you wrote the pages and tested them?
On par. I mean, I'm sure there's like a slight. I'm sure some of the browsers are slightly shunned, but I'm testing this like at a human eyeball. My test is very unscientific. It's how is the average end user going to perceive a page written in this way. I could give a shit if it's a nanosecond faster. It's like I care how does the eyeball shine. And overall, it was comparable with most of it. So it's like it worries me a little bit because Firefox is my favorite browser, but I'm not gonna. I have to acknowledge this bug. Yeah. I take it y'all have never come across that ever. Okay.
No, I haven't. but one of the reasons is I haven't used Firefox for a long time.
Yeah, what are you using? Chrome or Chromium?
I switched to Chrome actually from the day it came out. You know, I heard about it before it came out, and I read the little comic book that they put out. You know, before that I used Firefox, but I was one of the first people using Chrome, and I like it.
I'm just attached to having my menu bar. That's like I just am.